votes. We have assembled a special panel of 4 senators who have done this, serving during the Clinton impeachment and the challenge of judging a president. Here they were back then.
The question now is a Senate trial on impeachment, which is very serious and very sobering.
We know what everybody has to say. They've testified under oath. They have all been cross-examined.
On both votes today, only one lawmaker broke ranks. Russ Feingold of Wisconsin opposed fellow Democrats, voting against dismissal and 4 witnesses.
We could debate and argue this until hell freezes over, and the ultimate answer and the result would be the same thing.
And I'm joined now by former Louisiana U.S. Senator John Breaux, former North Dakota U.S. Senator Byron Dorgan, former New Jersey U.S. Senator Robert Torricelli, and former Wisconsin U.S. Senator Russ Feingold. I should note they are all Democrats who did vote against the conviction in the Clinton impeachment. And for viewers trying to keep score, we have everybody on. We had Mark Meadows on yesterday. This happens to be a case where our senators are all from one party. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You're all senators, which means you all know how to speak. I'll make you a deal. I will do only 2 yes or no questions round robin, and then after that we'll do full answers. Will you accept that deal?
I accept.
Sure.
Fantastic.
I'll try.
You see, the torch is already leaving himself negotiating room. But in all seriousness, senators, first to get a couple things out of the way, so to speak, starting with Senator Breaux, yes or no, under the Constitution, is abuse of power an impeachable offense? Senator Breaux?
Yes, if it's a high crime and misdemeanor, yes.
Senator Dorgan?
Yes, I believe it is.
Senator Feingold?
Absolutely, yes.
Senator Torricelli?
Definitely yes.
And my last yes or no question for you, gentlemen, would be something else that has become a big debate now, and you have this experience. Do you need a felony? Do you need a statutory violation to impeach and convict a federal official, including the president? Senator Breaux?
No, that's not what the Constitution says at all.
Senator Dorgan?
You do not need that.
Senator Feingold?
Absolutely not.
Senator Torricelli?
No, and I think Adam Schiff has made that case conclusively.
So with your experience and all of you sort of in agreement on that, which is pretty interesting, given that there is a big part of this trial, which means essentially at least a plurality of the country, debating those matters, let's open it up to conversation. Senator Breaux, on the abuse of power, do you think the Democrats at this point in time here, having gone through the majority of their opening arguments, do you think they've supplied sufficient evidence to convict?
The answer from my perspective is yes, they have, but let's not kid ourselves. No matter how many witnesses are called, the end result is predetermined. The Senate is not going to have 67 votes to convict the president, no matter how many additional witnesses might be called. And that's why I and others have suggested a censure resolution to reprimand the president. So after this is over, he can't go around and say I'm as pure as the driven snow, which I'm certain he's going to do.
Who else wants in?
Well, Ari, let me take a different view. I actually regret that there was the second article of impeachment. I think the case has been made for the first article. But on obstruction, obviously the president should comply with subpoenas. He should provide witnesses. He has a moral and ethical responsibility to do so. He chose not to, and he challenged it in court. Well, while it is right that he does not have, he's not above the law, he's not below it either. He had the right to challenge. And my fear is that having brought that count, the House managers will lose, and the country's going to get stuck with a precedent that the president did not comply. He obstructed in every way and is going to claim exoneration. That is a terrible precedent, because it is very hard for the U.S. government to function if the executive does not cooperate. And in this case, he actually has a legal argument not to have done so. He went to court. And the Congress did not wait for the court to run its course.
Very interesting coming from you as a Democrat, criticizing at least aspects, strategy aspects of your fellow Democrats and the implication. And I want to take that to Senator Feingold. You distinguish yourself for being willing to break with your party, for being aggressive on all sorts of issues, whether it was money in politics or your criticism of President Bush before that became more commonplace on the powers he was seeking. What do you think of the fact that the Democrats went narrow? I mean, they didn't include bribery, and they didn't include obstruction of justice, which is generally considered more serious in the Mueller probe. And then Senator Torricelli is saying that the obstruction angle of Congress could backfire.
Well, I haven't had a chance to disagree with Bob for a while, so it's kind of fun. But I happen to think that the combination of these two charges make real sense. This is a crossroads in American history. And if the United States Congress can't stand up to a president who's a bully and who has nothing but contempt for the rule of law when it comes to their powers, this will be a precedent going forward where any president can ignore the Congress and its rights to subpoena and get the information it needs. So I think they're well balanced, and I think they were well chosen.
Senator Dorgan?
Yeah, well, you know, look, it's pretty pathetic that the Congress has ceded much of its authority these days to the presidency. The Congress is an equal branch of government. It doesn't serve under a president. It's an equal branch of government. And this president has done everything possible to obstruct, demanding that they cannot receive documents, cannot interview these witnesses. The fact is, we know, and both the president and also Senator McConnell, they would demand these witnesses be allowed to testify if there was exculpatory evidence that helped the president. But, you know, what we need to try to figure out what's going on here with Giuliani and Mulvaney and Pump. And we need to find out where all this ended, because we need to know the rest of the story, not just for this trial. The American people deserve to know the rest of the story as they go to the polls as well in November.
Let me push you on that, Senator Dorgan, and then go back to Senator Torricelli because he's uncorked this part of it. Isn't it possible to say that everything you just said is right and okay? And that there is the demand and the desire for the truth, but that every president has the right to fight, that Bill Clinton did initially fight, sitting for that interview that he ultimately did, that Richard Nixon, however negative the association is of him in these proceedings, had the right to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. The issue is whether you ultimately, of course, have to comply when you get it. Isn't the issue that Senator Torricelli is raising that if you say in 4 months it's impeachable, you're not leaving the president time and room to fight, which he's allowed to under the Constitution?
Well, at the end of the day, it would probably take more time, and Mitch McConnell wants a quick trial prior to the State of the Union address, I guess. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's much question that the Supreme Court, the court system, would decide that this president has a responsibility to respond to the Congress, to provide those documents, to provide witnesses. I think that's the case.
Senator Torricelli?
Well, this is true in every legal case in America. When you bring a case, you can hope for the best and create a precedent that you succeed. But you also have a precedent if you lose. And I am concerned about the precedent that if the managers lose on the issue of obstruction, we are going to have a very dangerous precedent here, that a president does not have to comply with these subpoenas. I think that should have been thought through. And I don't mean to disparage the managers. I've been very pleased. 3 of us, I think, on this panel are former House members. I think Adam Schiff has been brilliant, and I think we're all probably proud to see how the House has responded. But if you have a second, there's one more flaw I thought here in strategy as well. Had I been Adam Schiff, I would not have argued so much on the issue of Hunter Biden and his conduct. They have invited now the Republicans to say, well, you believe him and you think he committed no offense, we have a right to hear from him. I thought that was a real failure of strategy.
Right, and you're suggesting that they've invited them like so many vampires. I think they felt that the vampires were already in the Senate chamber. They weren't going to avoid the Biden issue, and they had to get ahead of it. Right. While I have each of you here, before I lose you, I did want to get into the other issue of what you know as Senate jurors in this process. Maybe you all had more endurance, because we've heard senators on the Republican side talking about how hard it is and how long it is and how boring it is, and they're a few days in. The Clinton trial was 5 weeks plus, and as I've mentioned, Americans have served on juries that last that long or longer. Here was Jimmy Kimmel on that last night.
It is impossible for them to defend. So instead of even trying, instead they're going with the old "it's boring" defense.
When you watch this, it's boring.
I think it's super boring because no one's going to watch the entire thing because it is boring. It will make you fall asleep.
Monotonous, dull, boring. Good luck staying awake.
No. Have these people watched any congressional hearing ever? They're all boring. Next week, watch the Rural Transportation Initiative hearing and get back to us.
Senator Breaux?
Not a legal argument. I mean, that's what you say when you don't want to talk about the facts and you can't defend against the facts. I think the House, the managers actually were correct in bringing up Biden because they know darn good and well that the Republicans are going to spend a lot of time arguing about what Biden did or didn't do. So they were trying to preliminarily, I think, set up a defense against it. I think they did the right thing.
Senator Feingold?
Well, it is boring, but what's not boring is what Donald Trump's going to do if he gets away with this.
Is it boring, Senator Dorgan? I mean, I was thinking, and look, I could be wrong, a lot of trials are way more boring than this.
Yeah. I mean, I assume there are some in there that think it's something between a migraine and a root canal. But, you know, they can't speak. They've got to sit there and not be able to say a word. But the fact is, this is a really, really important thing for our country and for our country's future. So, you know, a little boredom won't hurt people, but they ought to listen and listen attentively. I think what's been presented by the House managers has been exceptional. And now we'll hear the other side as well. And then at the end of that, I'd love to see the rest of the witnesses come forward.
I feel that you, and I'll put myself in it too, we're all admitting how much we like participating and talking when we liken having to be quiet to a root canal. And the same could be said for me, because Senator Torricelli, you know, there are people who put down good time and money to go on silent meditation retreats, and they don't speak for days. They don't look at it as painful as we might.
You know, time has a way of clearing things up. I actually don't remember the Clinton impeachment being boring at all. The presentations were fascinating. We had the weight of the moment. I don't actually remember the same phenomenon, but to try to end on a different note, you think this is boring? How about sitting in Philadelphia week after week in a hot room during the deliberations on the American Constitution, knowing that your life was on the line?
That's right.
You know, and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, that was probably pretty boring too, but people did it. It's the job. It's the responsibility. It's for the country. You do it.
I feel, Senator Feingold, like Senator Torricelli is telling us, I see your long-running trial, and I raise you a constitutional convention.
I think it's a great way to end, because this is what this is about. There are tough times for the American people, but this is a crossroads. This will be one of those moments when we find out whether the United States Senate is the institution it's supposed to be, or whether it's going to fail because they're afraid of a bully, and that's what this is all about.
And we give that.
I would say if anyone's bored at an impeachment trial, they're missing the point.
All great points for us to reflect on. And having four senators who've been in this, it's really informative for us, and I hope for our viewers as well. Senators Breaux, Dorgan, Torricelli, and Feingold, my thanks to each of you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.